At the Metro Court pool, the mood was deceptively casual under the summer sun, but underneath the surface, tensions stirred and secrets threatened to unravel. Molly sat beside Cody, the sunscreen untouched between them. She refused his playful suggestion to apply more, accusing him half-jokingly of simply wanting her hands all over his body. But the tone was sharper than expected, layered with suspicion, and Cody sensed something had shifted. Molly's sudden defensiveness puzzled him, especially when she tried to distract from the awkwardness by waving around a battered paperback cowboy romance novel, insisting it was merely research for a book she was supposedly writing. Cody wasn't convinced, and neither was Molly, her cheeks betraying a blush of real embarrassment. Elsewhere, at the Davis home, Michael was having a conversation with Kristina that quickly turned from sibling concern to sheer disbelief. He had asked her why she kept trying to drive a wedge between Molly and Cody, expecting some sisterly overprotectiveness. Instead, Kristina dropped a bombshell that rocked him. She claimed Cody was the kind of guy who'd take money to seduce anyone if the price was right. And she knew that not as an assumption, but from personal experience. She had paid Cody herself, once, to seduce Ava Jerome. The confession came with a bitter aftertaste of regret, but Kristina wasn't done. There was more. Much more. In a hushed voice, Kristina admitted to something far darker. She had cut the brakes on what she believed was Ava's car, driven by a desperate thirst for revenge. But the plan backfired catastrophically when it turned out the car belonged to Rick Lansing. The accident had nearly killed Rick and Elizabeth, leaving Kristina to bear the crushing weight of what she had nearly done. Her actions, however unintentional in their consequences, had spiraled into a nightmare of guilt and manipulation. Rick and Ava, having pieced together the truth, now held it over Alexis's head like a guillotine. They were blackmailing her mother, and Alexis was powerless to stop it. Michael was shaken, filled with guilt for having missed the signs, for not being there when Kristina had needed a voice of reason or even just a shoulder to lean on. Kristina, however, seemed almost relieved after her confession, finally freeing herself from the burden she had been carrying for so long. Yet she made Michael swear never to tell Alexis. Her mother could never know. Not yet. Not like this. As they sat together trying to compose themselves, Alexis arrived home unexpectedly with Scout in tow. The air turned tense as Kristina and Michael scrambled to hide their emotional state. But Alexis had her own news. The wedding between Willow and Drew had imploded spectacularly. She explained that Willow had discovered Drew had slept with Nina, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the family and derailed what was supposed to be a joyful union. At Carly's house, Jason arrived silently, watching as she tried to explain to Wiley why Willow wouldn't be marrying Uncle Drew after all. There was a quiet sadness to it, a reminder that even when adults break, they must find a way to be strong for the children. Jason, however, had come with his own questions. He asked Carly if she knew whether Britt had been buried or cremated, a question that unnerved her. She worried he might be considering something drastic, like digging up Britt's remains. Jason didn't confirm or deny it, but his haunted expression said enough. Carly had no answers, only concern. Determined, Jason tracked down Liesel, who was drinking alone among the remnants of what was meant to be a wedding celebration. He approached her with caution, bringing up Britt's name with a mix of hope and dread. Liesel's eyes flickered with guarded emotion. Something about Britt's fate didn't sit right with Jason, and his instincts were screaming that the story everyone had accepted wasn't over. Liesel, too, seemed unable to let go, her grief tinged with unease. Britt's death had never felt like the end. Back in a sleek office shrouded in secrecy, Brennan was having a conversation of his own, with Vaughn. The tone was all business, but laced with the awareness that they were treading a dangerous line. Vaughn, as Brennan reminded him, was playing a role, and he needed to stay in character. Jocelyn's involvement in their plan added an unpredictable variable. Brennan wanted to be sure she understood the difference between the act and the reality. Jocelyn assured him she did, but Brennan couldn't shake the feeling that genuine emotion could sabotage everything. When Jocelyn admitted she couldn't predict how she'd feel months from now, Brennan registered it with a nod, appreciating her honesty but also seeing it as a potential risk. They turned their attention to more immediate concerns. A courier carrying a tracking device was en route to the Five Poppies resort. As they watched the signal move, night fell suddenly on the screen. Jocelyn speculated it could be a range issue or a blocked signal. Brennan hoped that was all it was, because if it wasn't, it meant someone knew they were being tracked. The possibility of discovery cast a long shadow over their operation. Meanwhile, far from Port Charles, a different mystery was unfolding. The Greta courier had finally arrived at a hidden laboratory in Croatia, Britt's old lab. Britt, long presumed dead, was still alive, still working, and still watching. She had expected the courier, but not the delay. Something had gone wrong along the way, and she needed answers. What Britt didn't know was that Jason was already on her trail. And what Jason didn't know was that Britt had become part of something far bigger than he ever imagined. The unraveling of these many storylines, from Kristina's guilt to Jocelyn's emotional entanglement, from Britt's shadowy reappearance to Jason's obsessive pursuit of the truth, marked a seismic shift in the landscape of Port Charles. Alliances were fraying. Secrets were metastasizing into threats. And through it all, a singular question loomed in every corner of every storyline: how much truth is too much? Jason's fixation on Britt might lead him to uncover a conspiracy rooted in biotech espionage and human experimentation. Kristina's well-intentioned revenge might end up tearing her family apart. Jocelyn's role as a fake operative might make her forget where the lies end and her own feelings begin. As the summer heat cloaked Port Charles in its sweltering grip, the city braced for the storm ahead. Emotions were running high. Truths, long buried, were clawing their way back into the light. And no one, absolutely no one, was safe from the reckoning to come.